Well, welcome to the 700 Club. No holding back. The Democrats move forward today with hearings to determine whether to impeach or not to impeach President Trump. The president fired back against the sham. What's in the 300-page report released yesterday? Who does it implicate? And when will it all end? Caitlin Burke has the latest.
The House Judiciary Committee begins its hearings today to decide if the charges in the Intelligence Committee's report rise to the level of impeachment. Legal and constitutional experts are set to take the stand to discuss the constitutional grounds for impeachment.
This is the result of a president who believes that he is beyond indictment, beyond impeachment, beyond any form of accountability, and indeed above the law.
On Tuesday, the House Intelligence Committee voted along party lines to release the 300-page report on its investigation into alleged misconduct by President Trump in regard to Ukraine. The report accuses the president of putting his personal political interests above national interests and obstructing justice by forbidding White House aides to testify.
This is not about Ukraine. This is about our democracy. This is about our national security.
The president responded from the NATO summit in London.
I think Adam Schiff is a deranged human being. I think he grew up with a complex for lots of reasons that are obvious. I think he's a very sick man.
Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney are also implicated in the report, accused of being complicit in the president's push to withhold military aid from Ukraine for political purposes. In a press conference virtually ignored by the media, Republicans released a report of their own, pointing out that the impeachment inquiry didn't meet Speaker Pelosi's criteria of compelling, overwhelming, and bipartisan.
They're having one big problem, and the big problem is the president did nothing wrong, and they can't prove it.
It's now up to the House Judiciary Committee to explain whether and how Trump's conduct constitutes ground for impeachment and to officially draft the articles. The full House is expected to vote on the articles of impeachment before Christmas. If approved, there would then be a Senate trial. President Trump said he's willing to let his closest advisors testify in a Senate trial, where he says the process will be fair, unlike what he calls the sham process in the House. Trump's approval ratings have stayed pretty locked in, and voters' opinions haven't changed since the start of the hearings. 47% support removing Trump, while 43% are opposed. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
It's amazing that Nadler, who is heading up the Judiciary Committee, said the reason he should be chair is because he favors impeachment. I mean, who ever heard, bring the guilty man in, give him a fair trial, and then hang him? I mean, that's the idea. And it's just amazing what we're looking at here, because the processes have just not been fair. And as the Republicans pointed out, the House is doing nothing about infrastructure. The House is doing nothing about military spending. They're doing nothing about balancing the budget. They're doing nothing about helping NATO. They're doing nothing about foreign policy. Absolutely nothing. And the one bill is on the Speaker's desk that she could get a vote on immediately, having to do with the very important agreement now to bring Mexico and Canada and the United States together on a new trade deal. And those people are doing nothing. And so they're going to have to go before the voters and they say, what did you do? Well, we did nothing. And, Representative Scalise made it pointed that, what are they doing? And what an insane thing is going on. Well, the impeachment inquiry started when President Trump was investigating corruption in the Ukraine. Now, the burning question is, who is the Ukrainian executive who hired Hunter Biden? John Jessup has the stunning answer.
Well, Pat, in 2014, Hunter Biden, with no experience in the power industry, landed a very lucrative position with a Ukrainian energy firm. Now the Ukrainian billionaire who hired him is under investigation and reportedly in hiding. Dale Hurd has a story.
Mykola Zlochevsky was once one of the most powerful men in Ukraine. That was before he fled the country, amidst several allegations of corruption. And he's linked to the son of former Vice President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. Zlochevsky hired Biden as director and head of the legal department at Burisma Holdings, Ukraine's largest oil and gas producer, and paid him $50,000 a month, despite the fact that Biden had little to no experience in the energy sector or Ukrainian law. But Biden was the face of Burisma in this company promotional video.
You didn't have any extensive knowledge about natural gas or Ukraine itself, though?
No, but I think that I had as much knowledge as anybody else that was on the board, if not more.
During the impeachment inquiry, diplomat George Kent said Biden's involvement with Burisma, while his father, Vice President Joe Biden, was negotiating with Ukraine, was a cause of concern.
There was the possibility of a perception of a conflict of interest.
And now Hunter Biden is tied to a businessman suspected of embezzling government funds on a large scale. That, according to Ukraine's chief prosecutor, who has reopened all past investigations of Zlochevsky on suspicion of unlawful enrichment, abuse of power, and forgery when he was Ukraine's ecology minister. Zlochevsky, as a government minister, was also suspected of providing gas production licenses and permits illegally to his own companies. And there are allegations of tax evasion. But Ukrainian authorities reportedly do not know Zlochevsky's whereabouts. There are reports he's hiding out in Monaco. Hunter Biden may believe he's done nothing wrong, but Mykola Zlochevsky, the man he worked for, is under criminal investigation. An investigation that most likely will not be good for Biden. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Pat, back to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been involved in a number of corporations, and I know what directors are paid for service on corporations. And the idea of paying somebody $50,000 a month is just undreamed of. I mean, they might get a couple $100 or so much money for each meeting they attend or something. Whether you own a bank, you might get a couple $100 for a meeting and so forth, or maybe $1,000. But $50,000 a month, it's a bribe. It's only a bribe. And it just smells to high heaven. And this man who's paying the bribes is now under indictment for fraud, and they're trying to arrest him, and he's hiding in Monaco. And this is Hunter Biden. So if the president wanted to investigate that, he had a certain right to do it. Why would we give money to Ukraine if that kind of rotten stuff is going on? But that's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. You've seen it here. Maybe you haven't heard it anyplace else. John?
Pat, NATO leaders are stressing unity in the face of global challenges despite public disagreements on the summit's opening day, especially President Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron's dust-up when Trump criticized Macron for calling NATO leadership near brain death. He then turned to the issue of ISIS, asking if France is willing to take back French terrorists who've been captured in Syria and other regions.
They're mostly from Europe, and some of the countries are agreeing. I have not spoken to the president about that. Would you like some nice ISIS fighters? Yeah, I can give them. You can take everyone you want.
Now, Macron did acknowledge that some fighters come from Europe, but said most come from Syria and Iraq. Later on, President Trump addressed the protests in Iran and the regime's brutal crackdown.
The word is that thousands of people are being killed in Iran that are protesting. You're hearing that too. Not just small numbers, which are bad, big numbers, which are really bad, and really big numbers.
Iran's leaders say they are willing to hold multilateral talks with the United States, Pat, if the Trump administration will drop sanctions.
Well, there's no way in the world we'll drop sanctions. Those people are breaking every law known to man, and they have been implicated in the killing of American troops in Iraq and so forth. And I think it's time to, as somebody said, when the pig begins to scream, turn up the grease. And I think the pig is screaming now, and our sanctions are biting in Iran, and it's time we continue to do that. That regime has got to go. Those people need to be set free, and I think everything the United States can do to hasten their departure would be a blessing for world peace. John?
Pat, California Senator Kamala Harris is out of the 2020 race for president. Once considered a frontrunner, her bid for the White House saw a promising start. Tuesday, she announced she's bowing out after months of slumping poll numbers and a campaign often overshadowed by rival candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. Harris remains California's junior senator at least through 2022. Well, the Army is forbidding a company. One year ago, as the nation remembered former President George Herbert Walker Bush, his loyal service dog Sully stayed with him, lying beside his casket and staying with the president's family. The former president had wanted Sully to serve those in need, and he is, as he became part of the team at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center. This week, the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library in College Station, Texas, unveiled a statue to honor the bond between the president and his dog. And Sully, the VIP, Pat, was there to see it all.
Well, we're so delighted. That dog was so loyal. And the amazing thing that he stayed with the president and laid down beside his casket is a beautiful thing. And they made a statue of Sully. So if we had a hat, our hat would be off to that wonderful dog.
No better friend than a dog, especially in Washington.
Well, that's what Truman said. If you want a friend in Washington, get a dog.